And now, here's another episode of On Campus with your host, Coach Mark.
Hey there, it's Coach Mark, and you are in for another great episode of On Campus. Well, today I am on the campus of DeSales University, an amazingly beautiful campus here in Pennsylvania. It's a D3 school, and it's led by Tim Neiman. Now, Coach Neiman has been here 35 years. He has over 800 wins here. He has 5 seasons where they've won 30 or more games. But you know what? That's really not what we're talking about here today. He's a very humble guy, but he's got a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience to share with all of us. And today we talk about his book, his new book. It's called What's Your Legacy? Awesome book. And we talk a lot about that. We also talk about how to find the right fit at the college level. So you're in for a real treat. Let's get right to it with Coach Neiman. Coach Neiman, great to have you as a guest on our podcast.
Thank you, Mark, for taking the time. I'm out here to DeSales. I thank you for all you do for parents and kids. You're getting the information out that they really need to hear. Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for coming.
Well, you guys got all the information, and I appreciate you saying that, but that is the spirit of this, is like, there's a lot of misinformation for parents and players out there, and I'm going around the country finding the guys like you with so much experience, so much wisdom, so much good counsel for these parents. So I thank you, honestly, for sharing it all. Let's start with your amazing career here at DeSales University. What a beautiful campus. Driving in, just amazing. You've made it a 35-year career here?
That's correct. So
wow.
Year 36 underway.
Oh, my God.
Not sure how much longer, but we'll see.
Did you ever imagine when you started it would be 36 years?
No, absolutely not. That's a good point. So I was 30 years old, and like any other young coach, you get these visions and aspirations of where you want to go and where you want to be. And I thought, 5 years, 6, 7 years, move on to bigger and better things. Allegedly. I had some scouting minor league opportunities here and there, but, one thing for sure, DeSales University is a family. They have a way of, getting a hold of you
right,
and keeping you. And quite honestly, it's been a great 3.5 decades so far for me, but for my family to grow up at. Both my sons, as you know, played here. And of course, all the families that have put, and their moms and dads that have put their trust in me with their sons. Yeah. And really, that is the career. Yeah. That's the career. The team has won a lot of games. I don't know what it is right now, wins-wise, but I know I got a lot of losses. Those are mine. Those are mine. I wasn't good that day, but the kids have been fantastic. But their true legacy, if you will, is, what kind of parents they've become, what kind of employees have they become. That's really what coaches should focus on. Yeah. And as far as a young guy, you're trying to make your niche, and maybe other opportunities don't come if you don't win games, right? So, and that's a possibility, but I think probably a couple of decades ago, I thought, you know what, really, the wins are great, but you don't remember a lot of them. You remember the players and their families and the occurrences that have happened over the years, and I think really that is what the focus should be for young coaches. The sooner they can learn that, the better. And it'd be amazing how all those other pieces fall together. Yeah. We're doing the right thing. We create it. The culture is a big term. It's like chemistry with players. It's got good chemistry. I know it when I see it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make it, but the culture kind of lends itself to it. So I think that breeds success. And you always put your head on the pillow at night and actually feel good about, what you've done. So it's been a nice ride. No doubt about it.
Well, there aren't many guys that I'm going to talk to that have a 35-year plus career in one place. That's really rare. So you have the luxury of looking back with so much consistency in one place. You started when you were 30. So one thing I always wonder about is the evolution of a coach. Like when you started at 30, you probably had a little bit different mindset than you do today, right?
No question.
You weren't necessarily thinking about development of people as much. I'm sure some, but not. You were thinking about winning in baseball,
sure,
right? Yeah.
And I was only 8 to 10 years removed from the players.
Right.
So I had to establish some, credibility, that sort of thing. I did do American Legion. I was at Kutztown University for 3 years, a pitching coach. Yeah. So I had a little bit of background. But yeah, I didn't think about that at all. To be honest, I wouldn't say I was a Tasmanian devil, but I was certainly geared on, all right, how can we win baseball games? How can we get better? But I think at a young age, because of my upbringing, my parents and stuff, I always cared about the kids, about what are you going to do beyond this? So I always had that little vein running, and now it's full-fledged in my soul,
right,
more than anything. So
right.
It probably took 10 to 15 years maybe till we had a great run in the late 90s through the mid-2000s. We won a lot. And, okay, so where's this land?
Yeah.
The end point of this.
Right.
We won a national championship. We got to the World Series, 9 NCAA tournaments. Great memories, great players, great people. But, I guess I'll relate it to this. Like back in COVID, we were home and crawling the walls, right, everybody? So we're trying to figure out, okay, going to do something at home here. So I decided to do an alumni Zoom. So, and I had 100 guys want to get on.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
That's a great idea.
So I couldn't do it. Thought, well, I can't do it guys at once. So I split it into hour segments, by decade at the time. And we're 100 guys, and those are listen to them, tell the stories and be happy. And it was so rewarding. I barely spoke at all, just listen to them go back and forth. And one quick story, Tyler Reyes, it was in the book. He had some issues in San Antonio, but and the outcome of his story has been great. So what happens to Tyler's on the mid hour of the Zoom, and Tyler's like, Coach, I'm sorry, I have to step off the Zoom. I have to go put my kids to bed. And you know what? That
just hit you.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I feel I've won a gazillion national championships, world championships by the players that they've become and what they've become. And again, as an employee, as a parent, as a dad, as a husband, all those kinds of things. That's really what coaching should be about.
Yeah. Baseball
is the vehicle to help them get to where they want to be. And it's been my blessing to be able to be a baseball coach, to do this, to have some impact on their lives.
Well, we're going to be talking about your book here today some toward the end. And, this is just an amazing book. I commend you on, you talk about Tyler's story. I read that in here, just amazing. So we're going to be coming back to this book and probably weaving a lot of it even in our conversation today. But I can't wait to get to that. But, before we leave the winning part, because I don't want to, belittle that or minimize that. You've won at an epic level, over 800 victories here. You've won so many championships, 30 win seasons. I think I saw 5 30-win seasons. I mean, that's really hard to do. So before we get into what you and I probably believe is the meat of this, which is development of people, we're going to talk a lot about that. But just the winning culture, I really just want to touch on that with you. Like you created a winning culture. How would you break that down? And I don't want to steal your thunder from the book.
Well, it's all good. It's a good question. And again, I don't know. I think there's expectations, that you've got to have. I think that I remember the first team meeting I had 36 years ago, and the team was 6-16 the year before. I felt bad for them and stuff. They didn't have a place to play that was nice. And I just said, look, I don't know how you feel, but you won 6 games in a year, in a season. And we're going to do that in 1 week.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we're going to do that. And I know I had their attention. How we were going to do that, I didn't know yet. So I think I've always been good at adapting to, the style of play. We like to run and do some things that way, but, adapting to the players that you have and, fitting that culture. Joe Consoli I worked with, and you may remember Joe, one of the best scouts of all time with the Pirates.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. He said to me, I've applied this throughout my life. and this is 35, 40 years ago, Timmy, after all the evaluation is done, find out what kind of a person he is.
Mm-hmm.
So that translates on the field, and again, goes back to the culture. That translates on the field, in the classroom, in the community. Those are great things. I never forgot that.
Yeah.
And he was so right.
Yeah.
And in this day and age of recruiting, it's tough as well. One other thing that Joe said, just because you weren't a prospect for the Pittsburgh Pirates doesn't mean you're not a prospect for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And what a nice way to say, maybe it's not quite a fit here at DeSales, but doesn't mean there's not a school for you somewhere.
Right.
Finding that right fit.
Sure.
So, I think setting expectations and then be willing to, make the effort to go ahead and make that happen. And it's commitment. It's, being a college baseball coach or college coach of any sport, it's 24/7. You're never away from it.
Right.
You're just not. So you're constantly trying to reinvent yourself and think about, all right, why did they win? And how do we do what they did,
Mm-hmm.
And maybe do that a little better. So I always studied other teams and, what it is was successful for them, and then try to implement that in my own way. I always remember this too. Gary Ward, Oklahoma State coach, hitting, and I saw him at a clinic, he was talking hitting. And it's about being your own person and giving the information that fits your personality. And so Gary Ward gets up. He said the definition of hitting was a sequential unlocking of body parts to maximize bat speed at the point of contact. Yes, he's right. That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go back and tell my American Legion team, all right, we're going to talk hitting today. It's a sequential unlocking of body parts. They're going to look at me like I was crazy.
Right.
So what he said was correct. What I've got to do is kind of make it my own so I can deliver that proper information to the players. Right. And I think that's a big part of coaching too. I think a lot of guys are bookends and, they come out like, I'm going to do that and teach it. But if you can't really teach it and believe in it, it's not going to get anywhere.
Right.
Kids are so visual too these days.
Right.
Very visual. They learn from seeing all the gadgets and, the technology, which is all good. And it's a big thing in Major League Baseball. But if you don't have somebody that can disseminate that information and make it work for the player, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
No.
Well, one thing I'm noticing as you're talking is you're talking more about personal development already and culture. You didn't jump right into X's and O's when talking about wins and losses, because we're not here to bash young coaches and stuff, but there's a lot of guys that kind of think that's what it's all about, like being this baseball guru genius. I know every move, I know every trick play, I know first and third defenses and all that stuff. But if you don't have the culture,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's just like all the tech too. I think for the young guys, and it's important. Again, I was that guy. I wanted to win in any way, shape, or form. And, luckily we were a success in spite of me. Yeah. We won some games, but it's, you're coaching in college or anywhere really. You're coaching for a reason. You have that pedigree, if you will. And somebody hired you and trusted you to go ahead and be the head coach. So the X's and O's and that sort of thing are kind of expected and accepted.
Mm-hmm.
So, but can you do the rest of it?
Right.
Can you take the glue and glue the personalities into your system of winning? I think I always talk to my young coaches about when they go to other jobs, and I think I have 20 to 22 guys, high school, college, pro long. And it's good, and I think this is a lot of it. And I have all the guidelines and the policies and all that stuff. It's okay. And the young guys, when you go for an interview, the academias of the world probably want that. And as soon as you get the job, put it on a shelf.
Yeah.
It's not true. It's not real life. So my one rule is don't embarrass the team.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mark, I want you to make sure that if you're presented with a situation that maybe you need to walk away from, I trust baseball will mean enough to you that you'll go ahead and do that.
Right.
And that's really, and it embarrass the team is collective. It's alumni, it's parents, it's people that come to the ballpark, anybody.
Yeah.
That's the team.
You're asking them to take ownership,
yes,
and be accountable. We're going to talk about all these virtues in this podcast. But, the other thing that is striking me is that you're just, what can I say? You are, we're going to talk about empowerment, but you are projecting that you are a part of something here and you're representing it. And that's yours as much as it's mine or anybody else's. And
without a doubt, I can't tell you how many hotels, restaurants, airports we've been in. Somebody makes a point to come over and say, Coach, I can't tell you how well-behaved your kids are. And I'm like, well, we don't really have a choice. You know, I mean, I'm 6'3" and 260. So, well, no, they do.
They still have to buy in.
Yeah, they have to buy in. Then they, you know, it's just not tolerated.
Right.
And I think people tolerate a lot of things these days.
They've lowered their standards.
The standards.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to do that.
Yeah.
I think you always adjust as you go. But that little mantra, don't embarrass the team, has worked for a long, long time. And it gives the benefit of doubt. You might have somebody, you know, come in that, you know, just made a bad decision, you know, learn from it and move on. Or you have somebody that might show some kind of consistent behavior that needs a little bit different approach. You know, might need a little tough love. Might need, okay, look, if you want to continue on the path you are, you don't play baseball anymore. You don't have feelings.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
That's the standard.
That's the standard.
So that brings up an interesting thought because, you know, you and I are on the backsides of our careers, and we hear all these people talking about how everything has changed and the culture has changed. But I don't hear, even though I'm sure you admit the culture has changed, but your standards haven't changed. Like your values haven't changed. If anything, they've probably grown.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think with age comes wisdom. So we're some wise sages sitting here today with a lot of knowledge that needs to be shared. But I think some of that's upbringing, and you know, I think it's instilled in you as a young child and going through high school or whatever. And I think that comes from a lot of that, just being a good person. What kind of person are you?
Right.
And kids will fool you from time to time. And I never really blame the players. I try to trace what's the underlying story here. Is there some background thing that maybe I need to know about that they have a hard time communicating with? More so this. That's kind of one way I think they've changed some. They'd rather text you, but they don't. That we try to encourage just conversations.
Right.
You know, and that's what's going to make a difference for you.
Right.
And as you know, I think employers will hire baseball players more than anybody because they can deal with adversity in the field.
Exactly.
But you can't do that on your phone. You can't do that on an email. You know, let's have a conversation and talk to somebody.
Right.
And I think that part has changed with those kids. So we try to encourage all that and sit down with them and talk. You know, just what do you want to talk? I don't care. Baseball's the easy part.
Right.
What else is going on for you? You on schedule to graduate? Are you how's everything okay at home? You know, whatever you want to talk about, I'm here for you. It stays between you and I. So I think those are so important, Mark, to be successful in a program, because if your X's and O's and like I've got stuff, you know, we have stuff, and we're trying to outcoach the other team and find a way to win that day. After it's over, we either won or lost a baseball game.
Right.
That's really the end of it. You know, unfortunately, we won more than we've lost, but you know, that's really the crux of it all.
Right. So, Coach, one of the big topics today is, of course, the transfer portal, and you know, you see all this stuff, and I don't really want to delve as much into the transfer portal as I do. Well, I want to talk to you about a subject I know is near and dear to you, which is helping these kids find the right fit. You know, there's a lot of kids, and you know, they think it's the name on the chest. They think it's the conference. They think it's Omaha, and they have all these facilities. You know, you hear all these young kids talking about, or the gear and all that stuff, right? And I think a lot of them are a little bit misguided. And what I'm seeing is thousands upon thousands of kids ending up in the transfer portal. And I would say that would equate to not finding the right fit. So I know this is a subject you speak to parents and players a lot about. So let me get your opinion on some of the characteristics or some of the components of finding the right fit.
Sure. And you mentioned the transfer portal. I think that one time, these are general numbers, I think it was at 5,000.
5,000 kids.
And I think the study was, or half of them don't go to another place or don't play again. I think I read that somewhere.
Sure. Let me just stop you on that for the parents listening. Did you hear what he just said? Half of the kids that are in the portal looking for a home don't find a home. So I think it's fair to say you want to stay out of the portal if you possibly can. I mean, I know there are some exceptions of kids that maybe it helped them, but there's half of 2,500 kids. Is that the end of their career for possibly?
Could possibly be. And I think you don't want to go through, if you're a parent, you don't want to go through this again. Now, you and I both know the number is 6-7% of high school athletes play in college. And that's a privilege. I mean, that is. So if I have 100 kids at a tryout camp or a workout, theoretically, 7 of you will continue to play. Now, that being said,
at all levels, not just Division One, I get all levels. So I say at least 93% or 93 of the kids at the tryout aren't going to play, and that sounds negative, but these realities are there.
It certainly is a reality, and I always follow up by saying I do think there's a school for everybody.
Okay,
so if you do the work, I think you can find one. The other key question to have in a conversation with your son or daughter for any other sport, how important is that sport going to be? How important is baseball going to be? So as we go through some of these fits, all these things fit together, and a lot of baseball player. Are you okay? Are you going to be okay? So thinking about this, I've kind of put them in like 5 categories. And I think it's in order. The number 1 draft picks that are top 5 rounders and, the big NIL guys, scholarship, they probably don't need this advice. But keep in mind, they are very...
less than 1%. Way less than 1%.
Exactly. So they're making financial decisions, pretty much at this time. Mm-hmm. But everybody else...
Yeah.
So academic fit first. You're going to college. They all have books. Libraries full of them. They all have books. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I think male students have a little more difficult time figuring that out. Mm-hmm. Right? They don't know. Not really. Females seem to have a little more focus. But do you have any inclinations? What do you like? I want to be an engineer. I want to maybe be a doctor. I want to be a physician assistant. I want to be in business. Whatever. I want to be in law enforcement. Okay, that's good. Let's kind of cultivate that a little bit. Right. If they do. If not, they go in liberal studies and they figure it out. So what do you want to be? A quick story. I had a player here a long time ago, really good player, and he had a good freshman year, and he came to this conclusion, you know what? I want to be in environmental science and like fish culture specifically.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, that's specific. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see. There was only a few schools at the time that had that specific major. He ended up at one of them, and he's working in that field.
Beautiful
decision.
Beautiful.
Terrific decision. Yeah. And even though he was a good player for me, you're doing the right thing. So academic fit first. What inclination do I have? Little conversation. Moms and dads know, hey, he's pretty good at math, or he's intrigued by, criminal justice or something, or sports, sport management, whatever it is. First and foremost.
You remember that commercial a couple of years ago? Yeah.
Thing you did.
I know. You're going to, maybe the young people that haven't seen this, you're going to be a professional in something other than sports, right? Most kids, right? So what profession is that going to be? And because I'm sure you've heard it. I've heard it. You hear kids say, I just love baseball. Baseball's my life. I'm going to play in the big leagues and all this. And not that we're trying to squelch their dreams, but we know that percentage-wise, that's not going to be the case. So we need to talk about what is going to be the case, which is their career, which is to your point.
We never take that dream away.
No.
Take that dream away. That's okay. Dream. Yeah. I'm 65. I still have dreams.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. That keeps us going. Mm-hmm. I think that's why we're on this earth. We're here for such a short period of time. To serve.
Right.
And I have dreams, so how can we help folks? Second fit, social fit. All right, so far from home, close to home, size of school. Do you want to go to state college where there's 100,000 people in a football stadium 5 or 6 times a year, 30,000 students, or do you want something smaller? Class sizes, anything that has to do with not to do with baseball. Again, how important is baseball going to be? I'm like, okay, they got my major. I like the school. I'm okay. That's okay. But we still like baseball to be the vehicle to fulfill your life.
Right. Well, I mentioned to you when I came here, I asked how many kids are on campus here, and you said about 1,800. And it reminded me of my college experience because that was about the size, and I loved that. I loved being in classes where, I had 30, 40, 50 kids in a class. I don't know how well I would have enjoyed 300 kids in a class with a person up there that doesn't know me at all. So you guys have an advantage here for the kids that really want to, I hate to use the word intimate, but it's definitely a more personable setting here.
I think you definitely get that. You get that attention, and our career placement, all the things we do here are a result of that, basically, smaller class sizes. But some folks like the bigger school. It's okay. I want to go for a home. I want to go have that big social aspect, and that's okay.
Yeah, take buses to classes.
Yeah. I think a lot of kids like that, and that's fine. I encourage it. But do these things in this order. If I'm going to that school and they don't have what I'm interested in, I'll stop.
Yeah.
Stop. Right. Find the next one.
Right.
All right. So I got my major. I like the school. So the next big question is, there's no sense going any further until those two things are in place. Can we afford it? And that's tough these days. There's no doubt about it. Tuition continues to rise, but there is a lot of support and a lot of scholarships, grants that exist that people don't really know about. And the FAFSA form is something they'll have to do, spits out that estimated family contribution. This is what you can afford to send your son to school. We'll have some liabilities too, and other things. But I think and it's competitive. There's a graduation cliff occurring this 2025 for the next several years, because years ago inflation was a problem, and 18 years ago, and then there's less people having babies, basically. Right. So there's less kids graduating right now. So it's become a competitive market. So it's a good thing for the consumer, because they need students to put in the classes every day. It's a business. Right. So the advantage is on your side if you're coming out of high school in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. But in Division 3, there's some now. Division 1 has changed with their scholarships, but in Division 3, there was a time there's more not pay back money in my program than there would be in a Division 1 school. Well, it allowed 11.7 at the time. Yeah. Some only had 4 or 5.
Right.
Well, I might have had, 15 academic kids out there that to reward it for their academic prowess. That's a good thing.
Well, let me stop you there, because there's a lot of kids listening and parents listening that get caught up in the baseball side, and they're forgetting of how important academics are, even from a financial aid package. Like, you're probably recruiting kids, that are pretty good students, because that's going to help make this a lot more affordable. When you can't give them a full ride, how else can they afford to go?
That's exactly right. And I tell parents that, you can start telling your kids if they come in with a visit to me and they're great students, that he's doing you a favor right now. He's doing a great job in class. Keep going, because you'll get rewarded for that. Yeah. Regardless of need, for the most part, it's hey, this kid's a great student. We want him at DeSales or whatever school, and we're going to take him. So again, I haven't talked about baseball yet, and then this is for the vast majority of parents going through this process. It is. It's just the truth. It's the reality. Got my major and like the school. We can
afford it.
We can figure this out. Now, how athletic fit? How do I know the coach wants me? How do I know the coach wants me? I think one of the biggest things you can do is a lot of schools have their workout camps and stuff. What a better way to get in front of the coaches, interact with them, their players. I think how they go about things, I think that's a really good thing to do.
Because you can get to know them, they can get to know you, they're on campus, they get a feel for it. Just out of curiosity, what percentage of your players have attended a camp of yours?
I'd say about a quarter of them.
Okay.
Which is pretty high.
Yeah.
Sometimes you find a diamond in the rough. Parents have to understand you can't be everywhere.
Right.
Which leads me into the video. So for video, keep in mind, folks, this should be a teaser. It should be an appetizer. This is like, I don't want to send game film. I don't want to send my son's a pitcher, but he's not. He's okay. The shortstop's making every play in the book. Who's the shortstop? Focus on your own son, but make sure it's an appetizer. Make sure it makes me want more.
Right.
I want to dig in a little bit more. We've not taken anybody purely by video. But we have written some guys off by video.
Right.
So it's amazing to me how many of them have gone out where somebody said that was okay to send. Get some advice on it. Talk to somebody that has some baseball background and say, what do you think?
Yeah.
Would somebody be interested in looking at it? I think that's critical.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of videos that come out there, my goodness, just the scouting thing, the arm action, the body action, the hands, the athleticism, all those kinds of things, that show up. And, so I think you have to accentuate the positives and then send it out to try to get some interest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, it's Coach Mark here. Sorry to interrupt the episode. We're going to get right back to it, but I wanted to remind you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It helps us immensely. We want to keep providing great content with these college coaches who are so gracious with their time to provide information for you. Whether you're a coach, a player, or a parent, this is really good information that these guys are providing. We want to keep doing it. So to help us, all you have to do is hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications button. That way when we post something new, you'll get notified. Okay? I thank you in advance. Now, let's get back to the show. But I want to go back to, the right fit athletically. And you said something about going somewhere where you're loved or, where they really want you. How do you, as a coach, make that clear to people? Like what signs because, these people get letters all the time and Stanford, not knocking Stanford, but they're one of the best marketing organizations out there. And I have people call me, hey, I got a letter from Stanford and, it looks like it was a personally written letter. I think they really want me. And I unfortunately know better. And I have to be fair of bad news. But there are kids that you do want. Like, how would somebody know if a guy wants them?
It's a personal touch. It's amazing what technology can do and how that makes it on the look these days.
Yeah, AI.
Yeah,
AI wants you.
AI wants you. But the personal, you end up getting a personal touch. I mean, kids spend a lot of time on their phones. So you start getting a personal text message, something like that from a coach. I'll be sitting at a recliner at home watching a game with my phone. My wife, Rosanna, will be, what are you doing? I'm working.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's been good in a lot of ways. So usually it begins with that sort of thing. You don't even start with a phone call anymore. We used to write handwritten postcards. And so anything personal you get, if somebody's still doing it, I think that's great.
Are there people still writing handwritten? Not too much? Because you know who did that to me? A guy you would know, Don Shalley.
Oh, yeah.
Out of Marietta. He was recruiting me, and he would write me little postcards from, they would be in Florida for spring training, and Mark, can't wait till you're here with me. And I'm like, oh, my God.
The same thing.
Yeah.
And years and years.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure they open them anymore.
Yeah.
But, no, I think it's still great if guys do that. But if your son's getting that personal touch, invite it partially for a visit. We have some, I call them mystery guests, pop in on this once in a while. Any new sugar, not vinegar.
Yeah.
And you basically would say, look, I can't guarantee a roster spot. DeSales is a wonderful school. If you're welcome to walk on, we're very fair. Then we'll see what happens. But we have an academic fit. We get a social fit. We've got a financial fit. I'm okay if I don't play.
Yeah.
I'm okay. So, but I think, we'll phone call. I used to use it against coaches because they just call all the time. They're like, Mark, how you doing today? And then they call you 2 days later. Mark, coach, I'm the same as I won 2 days ago.
It's funny you'd say that. When Christian was getting recruited, my son, I remember this guy said, hey, I want to talk to him once a week. And I remember thinking, what could you possibly talk about once a week to a 15-year-old kid? But they were like relentless,
I would use it against people.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm okay. Look, I'm not going to call you.
Yeah.
If I've got something, if I call you, it's pretty much important.
Yeah.
You have your application in, if you're to the FAFSA form, you ready for your ID? Get into some baseball things. But I'm not going to go ahead and, hammer them with phone calls on a daily basis.
Now, just out of curiosity, Coach, do the same rules apply to you that you can't talk to a kid until his junior year? Is that it's August 1st of his 20s? Yeah, going into his junior year.
Other than that, there's not a whole lot going on at Division III.
Okay.
We're supposed to police ourselves.
Okay.
And I think it works that way. So we don't really have those kinds of that others would have.
So are you saying you could talk to a 20 28 kid?
Has to stay on the campus.
Okay.
So that anybody comes to campus, they're fair game.
Okay.
You know,
but you couldn't call them?
No.
Okay.
And I couldn't approach, and really, you know, we'd want them to come. They approach us or email us, we would respond just generically.
Yeah.
But if they came to campus, it's fair game. So like, if I was out watching a game somewhere, like, geez, who's that freshman? And can't really, you know, do some homework and I always be able to find out who the parents are.
Okay. Yeah, right. Now, I know we have one more point, but before we leave athletic fit, just out of curiosity, what timeline, when are kids committing to DeSales? Where are they, you know, in high school? They're not sophomores, probably they're juniors, even seniors. I mean,
that's a great question. Yeah. So that timeline has got moved up because all the other timelines, Division 1 and 2. So we used to be senior year March.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, you know, we usually are finished by Thanksgiving or even before, where we've gotten some commitments. It's still going. You're still going to continue to talk to some kids, maybe waiting for the big phone call from somebody, which probably at that point isn't coming.
So like, for instance, we're in the 25 class. 25 are seniors right now. So are you done in the 25 class?
Almost.
Okay.
So theoretically, yes. And with all the 34-man rosters in Division 1 and the portal, so we kind of focused a little bit more on waiting to see if you got that kid that maybe can come in. But they've got to be able to start. They've got to be able to play. Otherwise, you're upsetting that culture, that apple cart yell, and that you don't want to do.
Right.
But sometimes if they made the wrong choice, we have 2 transfers now. One's a Division 1, one's a Division 2. They are so happy. They're so happy. They're not finding anything.
And that's the good side of the transfer portal, where these kids went, they were a little misplaced, and they found a home here. We're running out of time on this segment, but there's one more. I think there's one more section on good fit.
Yeah, that's an emotional fit.
Okay.
And I think for parents, so if your son comes, and we'll use our place, we had a 2-time All-American here back in the 2000s. And maybe, you can't just have one shortstop. And so we have another good shortstop coming in. And let's say he's like, I batted third and played shortstop in high school since I'm a sophomore. And mom and dad know that. And he looks out there and there's a 2-time All-American man at shortstop.
Right. So
mom and dad, can you emotionally handle that?
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to go to dinner after the game and say, it's okay, or are you going to find that right fit for that, for that young man?
Yeah.
Or you can go play somewhere.
Yeah. Those are awesome things. And I appreciate your desire to want to help these people find the right fit, whether it's here or somewhere else, but finding the right fit.
Absolutely. I mean, if they can keep those things in mind, they're going to end up doing very, very well and not going in the portal. And we made one life decision, one of the first big life decisions for a young man or a female, young lady, but we're making the first one and we're doing it the right way. And circumstances happen, but it's the way it goes.
So, Coach, I am so excited to talk about your book. Tim Neiman, what is your legacy? Tell us how this even came to be. I read the book. It's an awesome book. Highly recommend this book, but tell us the origin of the book.
Thank you, Mark. So initially, this was a speech I did at the ABCA convention, which was virtual back in 2021. So
this is in front of like 10,000?
Yeah, but at that time, I was on camera.
Okay. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
So when I had a chance, I could kind of gypped out of speaking in front of everybody. So it was a virtual registration. So I ended up flying to Greensboro, North Carolina, 2 of the worst flights I ever had in my life, by the way. Philadelphia to Charlotte to Greensboro. Oh, good grief. But anyway, I survived. And the next morning, I was in a studio. They made up a studio at the ABCA headquarters. Very nicely done. Well done. They're a heck of an organization. Highly recommend for coaches of all levels. So I did the talk. It was about 45 minutes. And it was, what is your legacy? What is it going to be? And the same concept at that time is try to share my journey, in coaching. So it would help a young coach. I'm not talking about X's and O's. I'm talking about being a good person and helping others. And I did that at that time. So it was pretty good. I just wish I would have got in front of the folks.
Right.
So, I'm kind of, I'm in the the twilight here, I guess, if you will. I still feel good, but you never know. And I know there'll be a transition someday. So I connected with Dr. Kevin Daly, who was a 10-year Harlem Globetrotter and was a captain for all those years.
Oh, my God.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we talked about this, my yearning, it's part of the book. I want to be, I'd like to do speaking engagements, and not just for athletics, but business folks and wherever I can make an impact, because the messages are across the board.
Right.
They are transparent, they're transferable, all those kinds of things.
That's the first thing I noticed. That this applies to life and business, baseball, athletics, all that. So that's really awesome how you weave that all together.
And that's exactly what I do. And Kevin's like, Coach, do a book. I'm like, no idea.
Yeah.
Never who'd have thunk it, right? And so he connected me with some lady in Michigan, and I had this outline to actually have the video of the presentation and for the ABCA, and we used that as an outline and went back and forth with stories and all those kinds of things. And Kevin's like, it doesn't matter if you sell one.
You're right.
Really, you've got one.
Yeah.
You're an author.
Yeah.
And actually, it's got off to a really good start.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. No, you're very humble, but it's I think it's flying. It's on Amazon, right? Yeah. I mean, that's where I got this one. Yeah. Amazon. And what? That's, as soon as I heard you wrote a book, the first thing is I got to get a copy. So I got a copy, and I'm not leaving here without a I definitely want that. Let's jump into the book, because what you've done is you made this very easy to read. So for those of you that are intimidated by books like me, sometimes I looked at this and I thought, wow, I can read this, because you broke it down, the word legacy, into an acronym. And I want to just go through each one, because, for instance, the first one, love. I mean, this is a book that applies to athletics, and you start with love. So let's just go through the acronym and tell me a little bit about love.
Well, again, it's that the intimate love that we share with our spouses. It's caring about other people. It's loving what you're doing. There's that saying, I actually can say I didn't work a day in my life, and I think that's true. I've been blessed.
Because you love what you do.
Because I love what I do.
Yeah.
And I love the players. I love everything about them.
Right.
And I just want them to always know that at the end of my email, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And I want to, I always tell them, I'm not going to be up on your social media stuff. Don't embarrass the team.
Mm.
But when you graduate, you will be my Facebook friend.
Right.
And some don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
But you are my Facebook friend. Whatever else.
Mm.
I want to know, what you're doing with your life.
Right.
Are you married? Do you have children? And do you need me?
Yeah.
Do you need me for a reference? Those kinds of things. And it comes from loving the environment you're in.
Right.
And it transfers out. It emanates out to the players, their families, their parents. We actually run a legacy dinner. It's called February 1st. And we bring in pretty good speakers. And this will be year 7. And they'll talk about the season, just talk about, we have a speaker, we have an alumni focus. We do a legacy award for the lives that were lost in that accident almost 4 years ago. But it's just a nice night to celebrate and, a little fellowship. It's just nice.
Right. And I guarantee you, I haven't been to it. I might want to come to one. You can feel the love in the room there. I guarantee it. So, and that's a credit to you. It starts with you. And, that's kind of contrary to what a lot of coaches think they need to be, this tough guy beating people down, beating them into submission. I played a little game with some people around a campfire a couple weeks ago, and I asked them, one of the questions was, what teacher do you remember and why? Now, we could apply the same thing to coaching. What coach do you remember and why? And I guarantee you, there's a lot of people that would talk about the love, the caring, the concern, the empathy, not the wins and losses, not how much of an amazing winner he was and all that stuff, especially if there was no love. So,
oh boy.
So I love that start. Let's go to number 2 here. I mean, these are all phenomenal. Again, read this book. It is life-changing. Empowerment. Let's talk about that.
You got to get out of the way sometimes and say, let them make their own mistakes here and there, especially especially if you're a boss or you're a supervisor, CEO, you can't be everywhere all the time. It's a little bit of trust involved in that as well. But knowing, what mistakes might happen and how we learn from them and move on is really going to define us. That adversity is going to define our success.
Well, where I don't mean to interrupt you. Where I really see the parents struggling with this because they don't know where to let go. They don't know how to let their kids fail. So they don't empower their kids. And I'm not here to bash parents, but you and I see it where the parent, the old saying, let's not, pave the way for the child. Let's prepare the child for what's ahead. And so, empowerment, that's giving up power, right?
Oh, absolutely. And again, it's trust. So trust your sons. Trust them to make the right decision, knowing that what you did to raise them, you feel good about. All right, you know what? I got to let go here a little bit. Might make a mistake. He might, but that's okay. We all do. But have them help make their own decisions. I had a funny story here one time, and I was talking about recruiting and things like that, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? And this is a true story. I said, I'm going to take your son. I think he'd be great here, but I'm going to send you to another school. So that
I like that.
The truth was in a jest a little bit.
Yeah. But, my mom used to say, many a truth has been said in jest.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I just, give them, let them, sure, you're going to have to guide them a little bit.
Yeah.
Those X's and O's when they visit, look, this application, everything else is on you, the player, the student athlete. And when we get to the FAFSA form, that's on mom and dad. And hopefully all these things will come together,
right,
and we got a good choice.
Right. Okay. So we got love, we got empowerment, LEG, giving.
Don't we all give?
Wow.
Just all we do is give. And I love it. I mean, I'm saying, you've accomplished something in this world, so you've done something for somebody else. I hammer that into our players. Community service, and we do it quietly. We do lots of neat stuff quietly.
Right.
Nobody needs the accolades. They need to parade down Preston Lanier.
Right.
Just, do it because you want to do it.
You weave it in with humility.
You weave whatever, and you weave it in with, this matters. By the way, this matters, and.
Let me ask you a personal, sort of a unique question about giving. Not everybody is wired that way. Not everybody grew up that way. So now you bring a kid in. Let's just say he's never done any community service. Have you seen kids make transformations like?
100%.
Okay.
That is fun. One of the things we do is we're involved with the Miracle League of the Lehigh Valley. Special, kids with special needs and they come in. I tried to explain it to our players the first time we ever did it. And I'm saying, here's what to expect. And patience, blah, blah, blah. And what you need to do is engage. And there's a knock on our back door down here in Bolero Hall. And a young man comes in a wheelchair. We're still close with this young man. He's probably mid-20s at this point. So this is probably 15 years ago. He comes through the back door and just does this. I can't explain it any better than that.
No.
That's why.
I have no words right there.
No words.
Yeah.
And I said, have fun with them. If you have a bad day in the field's about a half hour away from here, the Miracle League facility, just drive up there, and
it really puts things in perspective.
It does. And we, the parents, look, you just stay up top, or we put out chairs for, just relax. We've got this. And we do a little clinic and play a game. So to answer your question, I think the smiles on the kids that might be shy, it's not because I don't maybe want to, maybe they weren't exposed to it, and maybe their personality is not quite cured for that. But it's like, it's not so much financial either. It's your time.
Oh, yeah.
Give your time. Everybody can give a little time, no matter what your input is, and think about what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that's life-changing for sure. Let's go to chapter 4, accountability. Wow, what a giant word in today's culture.
It really is a giant word. And again, it kind of goes on empowerment a little bit, but just know there's consequences with the things you do. We try to put accountability on our guys all the time. We have field cleanup coming up. All right. And, you guys take care of this. This is what we need to be accomplished. And I think that delegation to them is really important. but we have to be accountable every day in what we do, what we say. It's not so much what we say, it's how we say things or how we act. I had a mentor of mine that owned minor league baseball teams for a long time, and he said, yeah, Tim, life's managing perception. Boy, there's a lot of truth to that. What people perceive. Now, sometimes they fool you, but for the most part, no. If you're managing the perception of what you want to be and what you want people to think about you, it's probably coming from the core. It's probably true.
Right.
Right. Don't be phony about it. So being accountable is like, okay, you know what, Coach? There was a mistake made. I want you to know, what's going on. And I said, that's okay. Let's talk about it. And let's make sure it doesn't happen again.
Now, I want to flip that a little bit. You mentioned consequences because, some people don't want the consequences of being accountable. Like, you mentioned something in your book where a kid got in some trouble. And I was reading that intently because I was waiting to see, okay, what did Coach do about this? And there were some consequences, some pretty dire consequences.
It was what's the outcome going to be? And in the broad scope of things, some kid making bad decisions.
Yeah.
Insane at time.
Yeah.
And he was the one I referenced before.
Right.
Putting his kid through that.
Yeah.
Great young man. And he's working for Kids Peace, that sort of thing. But, he got in trouble and I'm like, we had a little hearing the next day in the hotel room after this occurrence by the Alamo, by the way.
Yeah.
We had a little hearing with the whole team the next day of 28 players. Who's not involved? Who? And 14 hands go up. One of them was my son, thank goodness. All right. So you guys are out. But the rest of it occurred to me, there's no way this occurred by himself.
Right.
There's something else. So it's 14 players sitting in a hotel room in San Antonio, and we're playing the number one team in the country that night, Trinity University. And I'm like, here's what we're going to do. Reyes, his last name Tyler Reyes, he's in the book, got permission. And he's like, I said, you're going to be suspended indefinitely. Could be a week, could be a month, could be forever. See how I feel. All right. The rest of you are not going to play tonight. So I'm playing Trinity. Right. So I'm trying to scramble. Who am I going to put where to try to navigate the 9-inning game? Thankfully, we were the visitors, so Al had to pitch to him 8 times. We actually played okay. But the lesson learned there was, you know what? You're accountable.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah. In fact, I told the players after the game, I didn't decide this.
Right.
I did.
Right.
You decided it, and the 13 that didn't play tonight could have stopped it, or maybe prevented it. So, that's what happens. And
I want to make one point about that, not to bring up a sore subject, but I guess you lost the game?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you lost the game, and maybe it had something to do with this, maybe it didn't, but when somebody is not accountable and when somebody does something, some of those consequences can be a loss to the team or, like you said earlier, embarrassment to the team.
Yeah.
And, we have to think about, I try to help these kids think about the consequences before you do it. Yeah. Like, what could happen if I do this? And, but when it happens, and I guess I'm a big believer in there has to be some consequence, because if there's not, it's just like, okay, there's nothing bad happened from that. I'll do it again. And, I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to dish out the consequences in this day and age. I mean, even in the college ranks,
no doubt.
I have college coaches telling me it's if you ride a player really hard, he might just up and leave now because he can. So,
if I think the guys that played for all these years would say I'm a player's coach.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like, okay, I'm smart enough to look the other way, handle it, figure it out, but wise enough to say, let's learn a lesson out of this. I think the kids are most vulnerable right now to social media. They must remember, once it's out there, it's always out there. Yeah, I deleted it. No, you didn't. Yeah. It's there.
Right.
People want to fight it, they're going to fight it. And they will fight it from somebody else. If they don't, they're going to ask questions.
Yeah.
Again, what kind of a person are you?
Right.
And I think the kids are vulnerable to social media, so be careful what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
Does it represent you?
Right. Or even who are you associating with? Because you're guilty by association sometimes. All right, we're winding down here. Boy, time flies. Commitment. Oh boy, don't get me started on it, but I want to hear your take on commitment.
There's a lot of folks that'll say it, but do you live it? Are you willing to do what's necessary to achieve whatever goal you've got for yourself individually, for the team? Are you willing to take those necessary steps? And what you and I know, players are made outside of practice. We got 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, that's the team and things are going well. But you want to really separate yourself? Are you committed to the weight room? Are you committed to, getting swings in and learning and taking advantage of all the technology? How are you committed to class? Because if you're not eligible, we ain't playing anyway.
Right.
And guess what? You're not going to play at another school. You're ineligible here. You're going to be ineligible at the school you go to. So that commitment, and that's life in general. Do what you say you're going to do. And that's an easy concept. We've all heard it. But boy, I don't see people living that sometimes. And do what you say you're going to do. Be committed to be where your feet are, all these cliches. But they're all true. They all have some merit to them.
I've been involved in travel baseball for quite a long time, and I'll tell you where I see a lack of commitment, and it's very disturbing to me, and it's when parents let kids quit. And I've had people come up to me and, hey, Mark, this is mid-season. Hey, Mark, things just aren't working out. This isn't what we thought it would be, whatever. We're going to go in a different direction. And I always play along with it like, okay, well, after the season, we're done. That's fine. And they go, no, now. I go, wait, you're quitting mid-season? And I actually give people a hard time about it because I know for a fact it wouldn't work the other way. Hey, Mom and Dad, I've been watching Johnny play, and he's just not what we thought he was, so we're going to renege on our commitment to you midway. Can you imagine? It would never work. No. So there's no double standards. So, I came up with a saying, or a definition of commitment. It's doing what you said you're going to do long after the mood that you said it in has passed. And I really like that.
Me too.
And, but unfortunately, I think commitment in this day, the definition is more like, I'll do what I said I was going to do until something better else comes along. And again, not to bash society, but I think what we're trying to do as older guys here is bring back the meaning of commitment, hold people accountable. Do you have to do that, in your role?
I've been fortunate. I think it goes back to our culture, but there's an effect on that decision by that family or whatever during the middle of the season, and affects others. It affects, how all this other. So I think I like travel ball. I think it's become the wild, wild west a little bit. I think there's a purpose for it, but it does breed some selfishness.
Yeah, that's the word, selfish. If you're quitting, reneging on a commitment, you are affecting other people, and you're teaching, your son quitting's okay.
And I don't know how many circumstances, and you probably have heard too, young folks going out of the work world, not so much baseball guys, for the most part, thank goodness for me, but how many of them will start a job and walk away, within a week or days.
Because they've been doing it for a long time.
And they're okay to do that.
Yeah. Even for me in the travel ball world, if I see a kid that's been all over the place, my first thought is something's not right. If you're bouncing around, either you're not keeping your commitments or people are telling you to leave because, you're a problem.
The grass is green where you water it, And I think what's happened too, I've seen circumstances where, somebody might be the Pied Piper of that group, right? And they leave and drag players from an organization to another one. Yeah. That's systemic, I think.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
One specific area. But I think that's a big effect too. And maybe the person I love, their kids are really good and don't really matter, but they drug others with them that are in the same boat. Back to what we talked about.
I've had it happen. It reminds me of a funny story, though. When I was a kid, I wanted to play football so bad when I was in 9th grade. And my parents wouldn't let me play when I was in 7th and 8th. But in 9th grade, my mom and dad said yes. So I and I've never played football. I'm a baseball player. I've never gotten smacked around and yelled at by coaches and stuff. Well, the first day, a couple days of practice were horrible. I'm getting smashed. I'm all sore. My head hurts. Coaches are yelling at me. And so I go home and I start hinting around to my dad that I don't think this is for me. And he goes, so you don't want to play anymore? And I said, no, I really don't. And I thought he was going to say, okay. He goes, all right, well, you know what? After the season's over, you never have to play again. And I remember thinking, okay, there's no quitting here. It's like you got to keep your commitment whether you like it or not. And then I ended up loving it.
And there's circumstances that maybe merit that, where you've got to walk away from a bad situation. That's life.
That's different thing. But selfishly quitting something.
And that's the problem.
So,
about it.
We could have a whole podcast on commitment, but let's switch gears to the last one. And this one, I really am anxious to hear what you have to say. Yearning. Yeah.
So coming up with a why was a little difficult. But yearning, to me, it's what makes your heart swell. What makes you feel good. The things you're doing right now for parents and prospective athletes, student athletes, just the goodwill of it all. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you. We all have it. I all have it. Sometimes I need help discovering it. What is it that's going to be? I knew from an early day that I love baseball. And I was an okay player, but I started coaching at a young age, and I like this. I like this. So how can I make this a career where I get compensated for something I loved, and I didn't work a day in my life by doing that.
Right.
But that's what burns inside, the yearning to do the book, the yearning to speak in, at conferences or whatever. I have that yearning and burning feel.
Undeniable. It's I always say it's undeniable. It's self-evident. So let me apply this to players, because again, you and I see a lot of young players, and we see the kids that we can tell they love the game. They're having a blast. They're playing with their hair on fire. They're running around. They're smiling. They're joking. They're just having the time of their life. Then you see other kids, and you go, it doesn't look like they're having any fun at all. So when I read this about yearning, I started thinking about some parents that might want this more than their kids. They're yearning for their kid to be some superstar, and their kid doesn't look like he wants it at all. Yeah.
And I think that's a conversation that parents need to have with their sons. Like, do you really like this? We're making an investment, because travel baseball's becoming quite the investment.
Yeah.
And again, what's the return on my investment? What's the outcome going to be? And I think those conversations are critical. But you're absolutely right. I think the biggest compliment I could give anybody, tell my players this, biggest compliment I give you, you're a baseball player.
Yeah.
You're a baseball kid.
You are.
There's not a lot of athletes playing baseball.
Yeah, right.
But there's not many baseball kids that get in. Those kids you're describing, and the ones that don't, look, we're never going to get them to love it as much as we do. Ever. But, I got kids on my team that don't watch baseball. I mean, what are we doing? We're going to sit down and watch a game together.
Yeah.
But
I call it the baseball gene. I don't know if it probably isn't really a baseball gene, but I swear, if you and I walk out into the general population, we might talk to hundreds of people before we find somebody that loves this game like you and I do. And I always say, why is that? Like, what is it about you and me? Do we have some gene that they don't have?
We can,
maybe it is.
It's down from my father and now to my two sons.
But here's the weird part. My dad didn't have the baseball gene. I didn't even grow up in a baseball family. I played wiffle ball in the backyard. But I tell you what, when you get around other baseball people, those genes are starting to really communicate, and it's like, it's like this. This is what else would we really want to be talking about? I mean,
and that's the yearning where we talk about. I mean, that's I think we transfer our passion, our emotions, but not just to the game. The game, we always remember, the game's the vehicle. It's the greatest game ever. It's unbelievable. And everybody can enjoy it at a different level. My mom's 90. She likes baseball. She don't look at it like we do. The next door neighbor.
Right.
From like the game. Okay, they watch the Yankees and Dodgers, but they don't watch it like we do.
No, they don't.
Many, many levels and layers where people enjoy baseball. But for parents and kids coming along, let baseball be the vehicle to help sustain your son and propel him into what he might want to do with his life. I think if you can grab that concept and see if baseball really is his yearning. If it's not, that's okay.
Right.
It might be something else.
Right.
Have him, what does he like to do?
It reminds me of my son, Zach. I got him into wrestling. I wasn't a wrestler, but I thought wrestling would be a great sport, and he was super talented at it, but he had zero yearning. And I kept saying, but he's really good. And I kept pushing. He'd cry before every tournament, literally. And one day my wife came to me and she goes, Zach's no longer wrestling. And she goes, he hates it. He's only doing it because you're making him do it. And she was right. I was caught up in the talent and the skill, you know, how good he could be when he had zero yearning for it.
Yeah, and you could say, so my advice to moms and dads out there, don't be those parents.
Right. I almost was that.
Yeah, I know. Like, we're all guilty of that.
Yeah.
You know, I told my two boys, no, Doc, I don't care what else you do.
Yeah.
We are going to play baseball. Thankfully, they liked it and they're yearning for that. But don't be that parent. Just, you know, and I think you can discover that by the way they interact in a game practice, or if they dread going to practice, so they're miserable. There's some disconnection. Maybe it's him. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe the coach isn't connecting. Very difficult as well. It's at all ages.
Yeah.
But as a coach, try to have that personal touch. Those players' best interest in hand. You know, have them, what's good for them, and they're all different. They all have different buttons.
Right.
You know, it's not a cookie cutter sport.
Right.
And listen, especially this day and age.
Yeah. Well, you know, the best coaches are the ones that you love to play for. I mean, they bring out the best in you. I mean, again, that's a skill, a talent, a God-given ability. I can think back my 9th grade football coach. I ran into him the other day. He lives in my neighborhood, and he didn't even recognize me, of course. I walked up and I said, hey, I just want you to know something. I told him, obviously, who I was, and he was all excited. And I said, you're the best coach I've ever had. And the reason is because I had so much fun playing for you. I said, you had the ability to balance getting on me with loving me. And I'm sure your players say the same thing about you too.
Yeah, there's that one time where you can really kind of get on them a little bit, but they need verbal bouquets.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it might be 10 of those for every one time. It's like, all right, just so you know, this is not acceptable, and we know you can be better.
Yeah.
You decide.
Yeah.
I will try to make and empower them, and you know, be the captain. You decide.
Yeah.
You tell me. I'll tell as a team. Do you want to be 500? We can do that fairly easily.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be better than that, takes a little effort.
Right.
Takes a little more. Takes a little caring and giving and empowerment and accountability. All those great things.
Well, we got to wrap it up, but I can tell you that you certainly have left your legacy. If it all ended today, your legacy is intact. But the good news is it's not ending today. You're going to keep on going, and I have so much respect for you, and thank you so much.
Likewise, Mark. I really appreciate you coming out. You're doing great things. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. Thank you.
Thank you.